Hi, I'm Chika Coleman. This is Real Reviews of the Cinematic Underground. Chuck Kaplinski will be late this week. Today we're going to be talking about two movies that are recently out in theaters, one of which is Ted 2, and the other of which is Spy, the newest comedy from director Paul Feig. Uh, I really love Spy as a film, which was directed by Paul Feig, starring Melissa McCarthy, Miranda Hart, Jude Law, Jason Statham, Bobby Cannavale. It's about a woman who is a communications expert for the CIA, and her confidant, her spy partner, who is basically the James Bond of this film, played by Jude Law, uh, passes away, and this woman, played by Rose Byrne, has these nuclear bombs that she's going to sell to the highest bidder. But the problem is she knows all the agents in the CIA. Therefore, they need someone who is not known to Rose Byrne's character to go in and find out where the nuclear bomb is being sold, stop the bomb from being sold, and essentially do their best to make sure that that person, that villain played by Rose Byrne, is brought to justice. Here's the deal about Spy. It basically is making fun of all the other James Bond spy films that have existed before, except they're taking a person you'd find as your next door neighbor and putting them in that situation to hilarious results. Now, Melissa McCarthy really shines here. She's had other films in the past that haven't worked, like Tammy. Really, the thing that makes this film work is that Melissa McCarthy's character is extremely relatable. Miranda Hart plays her best friend who also works at the CIA agency. Jason Statham's character is a wisecracking, self-assured British agent who works for the CIA. And everybody who basically comes in contact with McCarthy here compliments her in terms of being able to work well with her in the film story-wise. Rose Byrne is continually hilarious from her previous roles in films like Bridesmaids. I believe she was in Bridesmaids, and Annie when she played Miss Hannigan. I feel like this Australian actress really sells the villainous role well, and McCarthy throws a ton of really witty one-liners once she kind of gets her confidence in being this spy person and this spy character. She's a bumbling kind of person. It's very reminiscent also of the Blake Edwards films that were Pink Panthers films from the 70s. Everything here kind of works in terms of physical comedy. There's even a character who, for all intents and purposes, is part of the CIA globally and is constantly hitting on McCarthy's character, which she kind of rebuffs. He's an Italian person, and they have some very interesting and hilarious exchanges throughout the film. Another thing that really sells the film for me is the direction by Paul Feig. He really takes his time in showing McCarthy do the action, and she actually proves herself entirely capable of performing action stunts, which, while it didn't surprise me, everything was shot very cleanly so that you could see all the action as it was occurring. And there are some really funny moments, especially when McCarthy's character, Susan Cooper, is getting her feet wet into the spy game, where some unintentional hilarity ensues. Specifically, I'm referring to a bomb that was supposed to be detonating in I guess it was a music festival, and McCarthy is chasing down the person with the camera that took her picture that would all but reveal her affiliation with the CIA organization, and by some miracle she ends up stopping that person, and that person ends up dying in a very ridiculous way. And because McCarthy can't handle blood or any sort of mess that would be bloody or messy, she throws up right onto the person who tried to kill her with hilarious results. I really think that this is a really strong comedy. There's even a cameo, and I don't understand why this cameo existed, by a certain famous rapper, and the jokes that Miranda Hart uses with this rapper in his brief time on screen are utterly hilarious. Miranda Hart is great in her own right as a comedian and as a character in this film. The only problem I have with her is that every bit of humor that she uses is essentially self-deprecating humor. Humor where she basically works very hard to make fun of herself. And while that's intriguing and interesting, it's also tiresome at times because you just want all the characters in the film to really have a lot of confidence in themselves. And that isn't really in existence in the film Spy for that character. I really think Melissa McCarthy is a very funny person, and I feel like this film essentially gets her back on track for being a successful film star. For me, Spy is one of those films that you need to go see just for the fun of what the film provides and for the strength of the comedy of McCarthy and Statham working well in his first comedic role, because I don't really count Expendables because that's really an action film, and it's definitely a film you should see. I feel like there are numerous strengths with this film that make it enjoyable for everyone, but I don't think it's a film for people who are under the age of 13. And that is my review of Spy. I give it 4 out of 5 stars. The next film that I wanted to discuss with everyone is a film that is a sequel to the 2012 film Ted. This is Ted 2, directed by Seth MacFarlane, starring Amanda Seyfried, Mark Wahlberg, Seth MacFarlane, Morgan Freeman, Sam Jones from Flash Gordon. There's also Patrick Warburton and Michael Dorn in small supporting roles. Ted 2 talks about how Ted the teddy bear, who came to life in the first film, is seeking to be considered human. He's seeking to be considered human so that him and his wife, Tammy Lynn, can adopt a child, because Ted believes, I suppose erroneously, that having a child will fix the relationship between him and his wife. Johnny, played by Mark Wahlberg, is still reeling from his divorce from the girl from the first movie, played by Mila Kunis. And when John hears that his buddy Ted can't adopt because he's considered intellectual property, they both set out on an adventure to prove that Ted is as human as anyone. The thing about this film is that it's really hilarious in MacFarlane's usual way of making fun of current pop culture in Hollywood, and also pointing out the absurdity of which it is that Ted is a talking teddy bear. Giovanni Ribisi, who was the villain in the first film, makes some brief appearances as a supporting villain in the second film. I think that the film really works because the trio of Johnny and Ted and a new lawyer named Sam Leslie Jackson basically works really well to kind of even out the comedic works of this group. I really think that Mark Wahlberg, again, does some really strong work here as John, and I feel like Ted is as hilarious as ever. One thing that has been added to Ted 2 that that I thought was particularly strong were the vignettes used when Ted was making a side joke, very commonly used in Family Guy. I really truly do love all the work that has been done with this film, in the sense that you really have the comedy stepping up its game. It's another case of what is shown in the trailers being more than funny than you'd expect. There's a scene involving Ted and John visiting a fertility clinic so that John may help artificially inseminate Tammy Lynn, and that's hilarious. Another joke involving a quarterback of well-known repute is also in the film, and really the jokes just they land, and they land hard when they land, and when they fall flat, it's okay, because you know another joke that's just as funny is right around the corner. I think that one thing that I want to say about Seth MacFarlane as an actor and as a director and as a person is he's very old Hollywood. He very much knows how to present films well. I know that wasn't the case with his previous effort, How to Live and Die in the West, but in this film, he's a much more self-assured comedian. He knows what makes people laugh, and instead of kind of going left field with a period piece, he really knows how to use his modern setting to make the maximum amount of laughs possible. I really think that the strength of this film is MacFarlane's direction and his writing here. I really hope that there's a third Ted, but I'm not sure that this film will make as much money as everyone hopes it will, as Avengers and Spy and all those other films are making tons of money at the box office. Inside Out is also another film that is out this week, and I'll be reviewing that next week along with Terminator Genisys, which should be interesting because that is the, I believe, 5th entry in the Terminator franchise, and this time Arnold Schwarzenegger really is back, along with Emilia Clarke, and I think that Matt Smith will be pretty good as a Terminator for this new Terminator franchise, but I do worry that it's more spectacle than story. Let's hope I'm wrong. So that is the show for this week. I'm Chige Coleman. You can find my reviews at thewheelchairwatcher.com. Until then, we will see you next time. Bye.